drug abuse, cancer,
measles.
Good evening once again, and welcome to another Doctor on Call program. We thank you very much for joining us. Of course, we welcome you, our viewers on GBN Television 7 and 11. Also, our friends on our Facebook page and YouTube channel, and our friends on K105 FM. It is a pleasure as always. Last week we did a repeat, but of course we're back this week live and in living color, as the folks say. All right, and we're ready to go. Dr. Nixon with us as always. We're quite happy to have her. And this evening, folks, we're talking. Well, let me just backtrack a little bit. The month of June, Men's Health Month. All right, so a lot of the focus in the next couple of programs will be along those lines. However, before you get to a man, there are a couple of stages you have to go through. All right, so we are going to be taking that in stages, and this evening we're going to look at we're gonna jump from being a baby boy to an adolescence, and so there's a lot of information to share with you regarding that, and it's a very critical stage in the life of a male. All right, but before we get into all of that, let's welcome Doc. Doc, good evening and welcome back. It's such a pleasure to have you.
Is it? Good afternoon. Good evening, yes. Grenada. Good evening to our friends in the diaspora. I want to say good evening to a couple I met coming on the flight who hijacked me at the airport. And I had a wonderful conversation with Mr. and Mrs. Joseph. It was a really nice meeting, and I know you're listening tonight. So, I want to make one point to the older population. So tonight we're going to talk about healthy young male. It's very important. Our male population is always at a greater risk than the rest of the population. But it also, remember, it takes a village, and a lot of our children grow up with their grandparents. So I want grandparents to listen to this, because often a child may listen to his grandparents faster than his grandparents and his mother and father and his teacher. So grandparents in particular tonight is for you, because you have a special role to play in the development of the young men, especially grandfathers. Exemplary lifestyle, just making sure that the young men, adolescence starts at 10. Adolescence is 10 to 19 for some people. And it's important that we have people in that age group that are well, so we can have a very highly productive adult male population. You make them, and the usual thing from babyhood and being born in a healthy environment, healthy mother, non-drug using parents, all those things. So we can reduce a lot of risks, right? Early treatment, early looking at pregnancy to see their challenges. Early mother has to make sure that she does her antenatal care very early, so that if there's a problem with her baby, male or female, that she's she can have some intervention and the child can be treated. We've had valves change in a baby while in the uterus, so we can do stuff. Technology does allow for a lot of challenges. Our boys have a special reasons for the young men, because there's so much risk that they face, and they become so very isolated. We keep telling our boys to go outside. Why not? While they need to be embraced and loved just as much as our young ladies. So I'm looking forward to tonight's conversation, and I hope that people would listen. Yes. I hope that people will hear what we say and support, because our boys do need support.
Indeed, and Doc, as always, I want to start with a little bit of information that I would like to share. Of course, it's from the World Health Organization website, and folks, we always encourage you to check out those sites. There's a lot of information there. WHO, Mayo Clinic, Healthline, Medical News. All of these are very credible sites that you can get information from. of course, when you go there, they do cite the sources and all of that. The research has been done, so you know that there's no problem holding on to the information that you get on these credible websites. So let me just start by sharing adolescent health, because this is where we're going to focus a bit this evening. Adolescence is the phase of life between childhood and adulthood, and as Doc said, from ages 10 to 19. It is a unique stage of human development, an important time for laying the foundations of good health. Adolescents experience rapid physical, cognitive, and psychosocial growth. This affects how they feel, think, make decisions, and interact with the world around them. Despite being thought of as a healthy stage of life, there is significant death, illness, and injury in the adolescent years. Much of this is preventable or treatable. During this phase, adolescents establish patterns of behavior, for instance, related to diet, physical activity, substance use, and sexual activity that can protect their health and the health of others around them, or put their health at risk now and in the future. And I'm going to stop here, because I think that sort of broadly covers what we're going to be talking about this evening. And so, Doc...
I was telling you, we can finish. We can go home now.
Well, we need to go into some details. We need to share examples, because we see a lot of these things happening before our eyes, and it's important to remind our listeners, and our young men, of what can and what cannot happen if they don't take care and pay attention, to what is happening around them. So, Doc, it's all yours.
I think it's important that our young men, in particular, grow up in a very supportive environment. Those social determinants, whether you have what your home is like, whether you have a stable home, whether you're exposed to poverty and lack of education, whether you're exposed to abuse and neglect, whether you're exposed to criminal lifestyles, right, among ourselves, because our young boys are very often drawn into this, because often they're just looking for love and attention, and the person who gives them most attention can most encourage them. I'm not saying that it can happen in girls, but the girls' risk of being carried away from the straight and narrow is a little less, and there are other issues that are related to that, and that we can talk about on another platform. But the environment in which our boys develop is very important to ensure in ensuring that they have a good life as adults. So, is your boy vaccinated? I'm going to go to the fundamentals first. Is your boy child just as vaccinated as your girl child? Is his nutrition looked after? When he goes to school, do you let him eat what he wants, or do you ensure that he has a good nutritional base? Do you counsel him? Because boys have this way of doing things because they feel very invincible. So are we guiding the boys and giving them good information to take them to school and back? Right? Are we doing the things that would make them feel that they are also welcome as part of our family? Because they have to feel comfortable. Our children have to gain our trust. And I think, as far as our boys are concerned, I think it takes a village is a very important concept here, because often we have mothers bringing up boy children as single parents, and they need support. I tell my female single parents, you have a brother or a cousin or a friend, Adrian, in your church, in your workplace, that you can help to mold the mind of a young man, because masculinity, especially in the adolescent population, understanding what being a man is, no woman can tell you that. We know that. We don't know what it is to be boys. So we need to have other men, and it may not be a biological father or even a biological relative, but I think it is important that other members of society step forward as models so that the mental and emotional health can be in the right place. So what we want to look at, we want to think about physical health first of all, and then we want to talk about mental health, and of course, I guess social health as per the other social ills, right? The social ills. And often when we think about health in adolescence and young people, think about sexual health, but that's only one component of it, right? Boys go through a severe change when they come to puberty, for example, right? All the, your voice kind of catch you off guard now and then. One minute you're talking like, hello, Mr. Godfrey, how you, it's very embarrassing for them. Or the singers, they get to the middle of it and they croak it instead of being able to sing. So they have to understand, they have to be educated well about the issues and the changes that occur in their lives. We focus a lot on the girls, and we do not spend as much time informing our guys about what these changes are about. So guess what happened? Some guy out there who already has a bastardized version of what sexual health and development is, passes it on to him. Give him free of cost bad information. So we have to create a space in which a young man feels safe, to be able to discuss these things openly, to be told about the changes that happen. That when you get to 11, 12, you start to see pubic hair appearing, your shoulder's going to start to look like bad. Not that you're a big man, because your mother will still thump you down. Your voice will start to change. You might get little fine hairs on your face. Eventually, little beard. Your leg muscles you get stronger. You get more attractive to the females because you have all these male hormones that circulate. We need to tell our boys that. We need to explain to them. We have to explain to them how at the end of puberty you actually are at a stage where you can procreate. You can impregnate a young woman or old woman, whoever you're having sex with, right? We need to tell them all of these things so they can understand why puberty is the way it is. And just as how everybody else, especially the girls, get irritable and they have all the rest of it, and we get miserable and we do whatever it is a very difficult time because the boys become very conscious of themselves. So they feel big as the big guys who don't want them around them because they're still a little boy. But they know they're changing. They feel differently. Okay? So it is very important that we're able to discuss the issues of puberty, which is just a normal part of life. There's no NASA science about this. There's no bad things about it. There's no ungodly things about it. The ungodly things and the negative things come when our children are poorly informed about the changes that occur in their bodies. So parents need to read, or sit down and everybody on my favorite instrument, the phone. All right, get in there, get information. I guess too, as the adolescent health policy becomes more practical in Grenada, there will be a safe space where young men can speak about their challenges. People have different sexual orientations. That is their business. The point is they may need to talk to somebody. Why am I feeling this way? Why am I inclined this way when everybody else is that way? Right? Boys deal with issues of things like bullying and stuff, but we're going to talk about that a little after. Right? But puberty, I want us to recognize, is a very difficult period for young men, and they do need support in dealing with it. So whether it's going to be health and family life education, community in school, or it's going to be older men mentoring younger guys and talking about changes, or it's going to be the church and other community groups helping young men to understand what their changes are, why they think like that, why they look like that, why their body goes this way, right? And especially where you don't have a very strong family unit, we as community are going to have to give our children that space. And above all, that young people must be able to feel free to discuss the changes that occur during puberty. And like we said, there must be a safe space where they can go for further clarification. Because sometimes I read stuff and it'd be nice if somebody just explain it in 10 seconds what it is about. Okay? So that is one of the things our health system is going to have to work towards, ensuring that our children are properly informed when it comes to issues like puberty specifically. What is this thing that I'm feeling? And that parents understand that your little boy is going to be a big boy, and your big boy is going to be a big man, right? Mm-hmm. So instead of saying, listen, don't touch any girls, you must explain to them straight up why touching, whatever touching mean, a girl can be a challenge. Okay, so puberty. That's how I'm seeing the whole issue of puberty, as something that needs to be expressed to our young boys that, hey, this is normal. You would see changes that are occurring, but it's very normal. Do you have any challenges? The guys they get erections, they start getting wet dreams and all of that. Those are normal things during puberty. So they must be made to understand that there's nothing you should hide, that these are just normal changes until your body adjusts to all of these hormones that circulating, these different hormones and different concentrations that are going to circulate through your body.
Right. But Doc, there is a little challenge there, and I think you made a very important point. The whole issue of when a boy is at that stage, he needs to be spoken to about these things so that he understands. Because one of the challenges is if, for example, a boy is going through that period as in a company of bigger boys, conversations among the others can place him in a rather embarrassing situation. For example, issue of sex. Maybe he has not yet experienced it, and other boys talking about it can make him feel a little shy or sort of out of place, and that
especially when it's competition of size,
right, and that can place him in a situation where he feels, look, I don't want to talk about this because I am not part of the crowd, and all of that can remain inside, and it can create issues for him. So the point about parents and having a comfortable space to discuss this issue is very, very, very important. I just wanted to underscore that.
So it also means that we're going to have to educate our parents, and parents are going to have to understand wherever the information is available, not bastardize information, that they must seek it out. And you can't wait till the boy is 13 and 14 to talk about them things, okay? Because we tend to do that. Wait till the child is big and we see the changes. Boy, I hope you're behaving yourself and all these things. You have to explain to him why you're going to change, why you don't look like your big brother, okay? Mm-hmm. I had a very almost embarrassing experience where a little boy saw an adult man naked, and there was no hiding. It was in a family environment, and the adult man got out and unabashedly put on his underwear and look, said, "Let me see your penis again, no man," because he's intrigued. There's a big change. He's 2. The man is a big man, right? And he simply said, "No, it's all right. Next time, I already put on my clothes." And that was the end of it. There was no sexualization of it, right? But he was intrigued that why you look different from me. So you need to start telling your children, you're going to look different from the older person. And you must not, and we can't tell our children to not allow older children to abuse them and embarrass them in that way, because that's your private, that's your private, that's your business.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Okay? That's your business, and there must be a certain amount of respect and decor. And the same way, you need to tell your children that they're not supposed to be mushing children and all the rest of it and wanting to expose them, embarrass them, because it is a very difficult period for them. So I think that's one of the things when it comes to puberty and the changes. Mm-hmm. I wanted to talk a little about physical health,
right?
Because we kind of started in the beginning. So they talk a lot about nutrition and balance and staying healthy with having healthy weight and all the rest. I guess the nutritional component of a child's health, right? And our boys are no less victims to the challenges of nutrition that occur there. Again, our families probably not eating the same way we eat. We don't eat the same. We don't sit and have a family dinner together. Even if it is boiled green fig and dumpling and butter, whatever the family has as their meal, or some chicken back and neck. Everybody eats what they eat. So you go to shop and you buy a half a bread and some butter and a piece of cheese, and that's a meal. And while home they cook steamed food with a piece of cabbage and a piece of saltfish that's spread across. But something's a little more nutritionally correct, right? We have to, from small, emphasize to our boys the importance of eating properly. Not only are our girls getting challenges obesity, our boys are. And then, of course, we see that as they grow into men, because they don't have that appreciation of how do I eat nutritionally well, when they develop diabetes, men are the ones who are going to get loss of legs and get blind and have the major complications in diabetes. Even if women are more prone to getting diabetes than the men. And men are the ones who are going to die earlier from strokes and heart attacks and kidney failure and all the rest of it. So we want to make sure that we can teach our boys how to live healthy lifestyles. Exercising. When you're a little boy, everybody will play scrimmage out in the road and six-a-side and cricket, win ball, whatever they played. Our children don't do that anymore. Our boys are out there playing games and developing internet content and all the rest of it. And no, I mean, running with AI to try to create who could create the most cartoons. And for everything, there's a season, and for everything, there's a time. We must encourage our boys as well to go there and play. Get outside and run up and down. Half hour of internet is more than enough for a child when he comes from school in the day. As a matter of fact, the studies are showing that when we expose our children to the iPad, I'm going to say iPad, to tablets where they get all the information over a certain amount of time or before a certain age, that they're seeing that they're damage to their brain function. We know that adolescent boys will actually have challenges if they mental health challenges earlier than adolescent girls. Okay, so we and I'm going to come to the mental health part on its own because I think it's very important, because we know that adolescent boys have the highest rate of suicide in the world globally. All right, for whatever reason, maybe it's for that same reason that we're not really giving them the environmental support and the community support that they require. But for whatever reason, they are the highest risk of suicide. They're also the highest risk of violent death by drowning, death by there's a way to call it, I'll tell you now. But those things that happen, sudden death, accidents, drowning, whatever it is, they do extreme sports and all the rest of it. So we know that adolescent boys are at that risk of dying tragically, right? Death by adventure, it's called.
Yeah. Doc, I want. Let me just state this here. Yeah, let me just state this here, because you're making some very, very, very important issues, and one of the health, adolescent health problem, that is, there's a correlation between adolescent health problem and a number of things, a number of factors, and you sort of touched all of them, but I think it might be important to look at them individually, because so one of them, the socioeconomic status, and they're all connected. So the socioeconomic status is one: poor diet, inadequate health care, risk-taking activities, which you just mentioned, personality issues, and the sedentary lifestyle, which you mentioned as well, and so they're all connected in some ways. And I'd probably like if we can probably take them individually and show
I was just looking at the physical health and some things we can't really isolate them because they're all interrelated. Okay, we can't isolate one thing. So regular physical activity is something we have to encourage our boys to do. We have changed in the last few years because there's so much access to handheld devices and other forms of alternate forms of entertainment. But we're going to have to get our kids out there playing. I know that the Ministry of Sports is looking at what we call physical literacy, where people understand the importance of physical activity in their lives. So the children are learning. So whether your physical activity is skipping or playing hopscotch or doing Miss Mary Brown Girl, whatever it is, whether you're going to play extreme frisbee, or they're going to play lawn tennis, whatever it is, you're going to be an athlete. It is important that each child be able to engage in some form of physical activity. Our children are supposed to exercise for at least 60 minutes a day, every day. we have become such an academic environment that we have all these subjects in school, and we take away play. We take away, you know, we take away singing. Okay? Where you breathe and you laugh and you sing all the wrong notes and you tease each other, and at the end of singing you feel very fulfilled because there's this thing. And do you know that choral singing actually is one of the major forms of therapy? It also makes your blood pressure come down. Okay, so if we can get our children to become involved in other activities that are not necessarily just doing physical exercise, but other things, becoming activities, whether it's cultural and otherwise, right, that are safe. Playing in a team, being a part of a team. It's important that because you're going to have standards by which to live. Too many of us take our children out of the things because teachers speak a little loud to them, and they don't want it. We have to stop. Cutting and powdering our boys. We want strong men, and I'm not saying allow your child to be abused, but you need to let your child understand situations and that he's going to be wrong at times, right? And if he makes a wrong decision, right, he has to learn to make decisions in the environment in which he finds himself. That is empowering your children to be able to take care. Our boys in particular, we want them to understand that if somebody corrects me, that's all they're doing. Granted, the person has a responsibility to correct them with dignity and quietly.
Very important.
But if somebody corrects me, I'm not going home and get a knife to stab them or a gun to shoot them. And if a child doesn't understand, especially boys, they will step towards violent tendency. It also depends on who they're hanging with and who they're taking their notices from, right? Who's speaking in the air, even indirectly, right? What is it they see in the environment? And parents need to know the environment in which your children are growing up and how much to protect them, or let them understand that this is not what you want to do. You can't just lock them inside and just say, here's what's happening out there. This is what's likely to happen if you're involved in that kind of situation, right? So physical health is not very far from your other health. I'm going to come, you spoke about socioeconomic state, and that's where the social determinants of health, also the political determinants of health come in, also the environmental determinants and all the other determinants, right, come into being, because those determinants will influence the environment in which a child has to grow. So if you live in a violent place, you may not want your boy on the street. There's no way for him to play. He's not going to the basketball court because gangs are out there. I'm just saying. Thank God we don't really have a lot of that. Not that it doesn't exist in Grenada and Carriacou and Petit Martinique. We don't have a lot of it, and we still have communities that look out for our children. So bullying a child when he goes on the field is kind of not really accepted, right? But I wanted us to look at education and social-cultural levels in families. We know that the lower the rate of education, the more likely people are to have bad health practices. Mm-hmm. The lower education, the more likely they'll be poorly educated as far as their healthy lifestyles are concerned. The lower the rate of education, the more likely they are not going to seek health care early. So it may mean that this boy child may not have all his vaccines. Okay? He may start school later, he may miss a lot of classes, and we create a cycle again of another generation of undereducated people who don't understand that I need to take care of my health, I need to take care of my dental health, my eye doesn't work well, I need to go there, I need to be able to screen for diabetes and hypertension, I have to protect my sexual health, and I have to make sure that I eat properly, all of those things. So we have to break that cycle where there's poverty and lack of education, especially health education, so that our young men can be better. Okay? The school is also a healthy environment. That the schools needs to promote healthy environments for our children to grow. Right? So, we've been talking for 2 years here or more about what our children eat in school.
Yes.
And there's a school nutrition policy that says we're not giving our children sugar-sweetened beverages, which means that they're not getting sodas and whatever else that comes sweet in a bottle. And even if you're coming from home, you shouldn't have sugary beverages to have at any time at all, because we see what it has done. We see that it has created obesity, and we see that obesity on its own is the biggest risk factor for a lot of diseases, including cancers. Boys are not immune to that. They are just as great riskers. They start consuming alcohol. And we don't say anything wrong with that, but they start consuming alcohol earlier. They start smoking weed, right? And we see other issues coming up from that. Now, it is therefore important that education be a significant component in family life. And what doesn't happen in homes should happen in school, right? We look at the cost for front-end package warning labels. Front-end package warning labels, and I'm going to talk about this over and over and over and over and over until this becomes a part of our culture. That when you step into the supermarket, you see someone and say, hey, this is high in sugar, this is high in fat, this is high in salt, okay? And this has trans fats, don't eat it, all right? We need to step in and say, oh, I don't want my child to have that. And you ask parents, if we go to the supermarket and you see a bottle of a container of whatever snack you're being given your child, and it says high in sugar, high in fat, are you going to buy it? No, you're not. Because you already understand what eating too much sugar is and eating too much fat is. So I want to ask parents and grandparents to support the schools that their children go to, which is all, but to support the schools that already have the national school nutrition policy inside. It is important that our children eat substantially healthy foods, especially since they spend 8 hours in that place. They're like going to work, okay? So don't hide the soda and give them to drink because they don't need the soda. Don't hide the sweetie and the chocolate and because they don't need it, right? Give them a fruit, cut up a fruit and give them. We used to eat mango. You never used to eat mango in school?
Yeah, mango that was the thing.
I walk through the country, I drive through the country and see plum on tree. Plum on tree don't last with our generation, even though I pick plum when I see the roadside. But the children don't know what it is. They don't even know some of the fruits that you cook that you see every day. Do you know what is plum rose?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. In fact, someone promised me a tree, and I'm looking forward to getting it.
I have some seeds. Yeah, because I saw some today. Yeah, and you can get plum rose tree because my brother has a plum rose tree. But I'm saying to you, our children need to know that there's nothing wrong with having a local fruit as a snack. There's nothing wrong with going and run up and down in the day and your mother called you that uniform dirty. I have a colleague.
You know, Doc, just a second, and I think maybe we should just spend a moment here, and probably put into context that word snack, because I think there is a general feeling among us that a snack comes in a packet.
Well, first of all, I can tell you when you are a child, I'm not named snack.
Well, that's the thing. That's the point. And this is exactly the point. There's a general feeling that once you make reference to a snack, it is something in a packet. And I think we probably need to get the minds of our young people away from that.
So a snack is supposed to be something that kind of fills a gap between meals. It's supposed to be something healthy and nutritional, and it may be a treat. And it doesn't have to come in a pack.
Well, that's the thing, and I think we need to understand that. So, when we speak of snack, it doesn't mean that.
And a snack is a whole new concept. That is a whole new social concept that's been very highly marketed. That you have to have a pack of corn curls, and I'm not using corn curls as a brand. That cheese snack, or a pack of sweet biscuit. Right, or a pack of this or that, or a Pennacool, or a lollipop, or one of the other ice cream lollies, or whatever it is. People think that's what it is, and they must have it, right? And it has been promoted to that. But you go to school at your lunch, and you might get a golden apple on the road, and you break it, a green golden apple, and you break that in the road, and that carry you home, and you reach home, your mother cook dinner, and you eat that, and you run up and down and play, wash your foot, and go to your bed. Right? So I think marketing has made us miss the elementary part of our lives, how families eat and how families feed themselves, right? So a child would not come home and eat the salty sauce and fig and stuff, and you treat him, right? A snack is supposed to be a treat, right? You give him something because you don't eat the thing. All right. And the first place a lot of families go to, a lot of mothers and shopping parents, I'm going to say parents, whether or not your grandparent or auntie or uncle, the people who supervise the home and the nutritional component of the household, the first place they head for when they're children is to go to where they sell snacks. Where these things are.
So you know that. I tell you, so you know, while we're talking, I just Googled snacks. And it's interesting.
Let me hear.
So traditionally, snacks are prepared from a number of ingredients commonly available at home without a great deal of preparation. Often cold cuts, fruits, leftovers, nuts, sandwiches, and sweets are used as snacks. But here's the interesting stuff. With the spread of convenience stores, packaged snack foods became a significantly profitable business. So we need to go back to the traditional
marketing. That's what it is. People saw a way, and remember, and not just convenience stores, convenience foods, providing convenience food. So you can buy something in a package, put it in the child's school bag, or put it in your handbag and carry it home and they have a snack. Nobody considered the nutritional component. And so what we had is a whole lot of nutritionally depraved young people. And that includes our boys who don't get proper nutrition for their brains to work properly, for the muscles to develop properly. So you see fat young boys with little bit of muscles who can hardly walk. If the river coming down and they have to get away, they're not going to get away. Right? So our boys are just as in trouble as our girls, and sometimes more when it comes to nutrition. Because also we don't teach them how to prepare food. Very few families encourage their boys to be part of the culinary activities within the house, within the homes. So, so nutrition. We're going to talk about, apart from that, and we're going to need support as the health sector is going to need support from families when it comes to ensuring that our children get proper food. Banning sugary goods in the schools, having front of package warning labels, right? Ensuring there's a proper nutrition program in schools so kids get substantially viable and good meals. It mightn't be lobster and whatever and couscous, but the point is, when your child has a meal at school, it is standard, it is nutritionally perfect for the child, right? In volume and in content, right? So I hope families are not going to be making noise when we say your boy and a girl child need to have this. This is what they need. This is what we can guarantee. One of the things is that there are children who actually depend on school for them to get their foods, their meals a day. There are children who are in that state, and the school is obligated to provide meals that are nutritious. As it might as well make the mother fry 2 bakes in the morning and every day give her bakes and butter, unless you can make sure that the child can get vegetable, small portion of carbohydrates, and some proteins, right? Too many parents don't want their children to do PE. You know, run up and down and play. That's not going to cut it, because our boy children are going to be obese and useless. And the more obesity you are, the less you're going to learn slower. You're going to have challenges with chronic diseases. You're going to have challenges with reproductivity. You're going to have challenges with asthma. You're going to have challenges with self-esteem, right? You're going to have challenges with self-esteem. I'm trying to reflect on the boys who are going to school with me who are looking fat. I mean, shoops for true, because they're nothing of what we see today. Nothing of what we see today. And we have to make sure that our boys don't have to deal with that level of embarrassment and low self-esteem. Okay? Other things, we want to talk about physical health, and especially in young and adolescent males, is the issue of sexual health. Sex becomes a very attractive feature in young people, right? Because your hormones changing, and that is what it is all about, right? However, there must be appropriate education. I know that people have religious inclination think they mustn't talk about sex to their children, but that is the most perfect. There are 9 billion of us in the world. You know how much sex has occurred? Okay? We need to tell our children what the truths are and explain to them what their responsibilities are. One of the challenges is that we don't give our children enough ammunition to be able to take care of themselves. So you hear recently, we spoke about this about a month ago, about the whole increasing level of STDs, sexually transmitted diseases, and HIV in our community, but not just in Grenada. It's gone everywhere in the world, because now people feel that HIV. I can get tablets to care for that, but that's tablets I can take for the rest of your life. That's something that's going to determine whether or not you're going to have children, because you don't want to have HIV and have a baby that is tainted, whether by the ovary or by the sperm, with HIV, right? You don't want to have a baby being born with HIV. So those are the questions. And just the whole, there's also the whole, and I'm not being shrewd, but there's a moral component to your sexual activity. You're not expected to go around like rabbits and having sex with everybody every day and all that. There's a human relationship issue that's very intimately related to sex. If we do not speak to our boys in a wholesome environment, what is going to happen is that they're going to hear half of the sentence. Right, Godfrey? They don't hear the whole thing. They hear half of the sentence, and that's what they interpret, and that's what they take into their lives. Okay? And they're going to hear half of the sentence, so what is healthy sexual encounters? Half of the sentence, and don't realize that they need to ask permission and end up raping somebody or having inappropriate, or half of the sentence and end up impregnating somebody when you're 16 and 15 years old. You're not ready to be a father. Okay? Nobody wants a 15-year-old father. Okay? So we have to, in our families, educate our boys very realistically about sexual practices and their lifestyle when it comes to engaging in sex. Because you're adolescent doesn't mean that you have to have sex. That's not a license for having sex. Unless you're mature enough to understand what sexual activity is, what is the responsibility that's placed upon you when you have sex, right? And all other components, where, why, and why, how, why, and wherefore. You're not ready to have sex unless you understand. It's not a badge that you wear. You don't have rite of passage. It doesn't offer you rite of passage. It is a very responsible activity that is geared to having family. And you must be responsible enough to choose your partner, so we don't want our 19-year-old boys having one baby with Mary and next one with Tammy, and then, you hear that Tammy's baby is not really his, and he gets broken, and you hear he have twins with Jane and he's 19 years old. No, that's not what it's like. There must be some boundary and there must be some structure within which you enter that kind of life. And you have to be educated. Okay? And so I really wish that our men will mentor boys, and they will, I'm not talking about the ones who really just can't help themselves, but I think there's sufficient men in our society who have the correct information to speak to our young men about making choices when it comes to their sexual lives. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm. All right. The other thing is that I want to talk about mental health, because adolescence is a very hard time, mm-hmm. Very, very hard time, and we want to make sure that our boys can transition healthily through adolescence, and it must, as we spoke earlier, start from when our boys are children, very young children, right? They must know that Again, you must live in a safe environment. There must be healthy surroundings. There mustn't be uncle who come and smoke weed in the house, so you're inhaling weed and you know what it is to feel high. There must be proper nutrition. There must be recognition if there's a family history of mental health. We must ensure that our boys are not subjected to abuse, physical abuse, sexual abuse especially is one of the underlying reasons why lots of young men develop mental health problems in their older life. Sometimes they don't understand it, but sometimes sexual abuse. And it's not just sexual abuse by men, it's also sexual abuse by women. And we know there are many older women who abuse young adolescent boys, entice them into having sexual intercourse with them, whatever form of intercourse. And this is unfair to these kids because they really just don't understand what this is about. Okay? We talk about physical abuse, okay? Where boys are beaten, they're beaten for any little thing. They're beaten by fathers, they're beaten by stepfathers, they're beaten by uncles, they're beaten by grandfathers, they're beaten by parents, especially when you have a situation where a boy doesn't have a mother. The kids who grow up in a very loveless environment. We give them food, we give them shelter, but at a cost to their psyche, a cost to their hearts, how they feel about themselves, how they live. They just survive, right? Yes, you have a bed. Maybe not the nicest bed because your mother, you're good for nothing mother come and leave her. You're good for nothing father drop you here. I'm not interested. I'm just giving you a place because you're a child. No, that's not good enough. We have to embrace our boys because I think boys are even more fragile than girls. We need to embrace our boys and make them feel just as important as any other member of the family, right? This beating of our children, whether it's in school or home, on the road, bullying our children, and bullying is a big problem for children who are different, and there are children who are different, but they grow with these scars and become dysfunctional adults, okay? So, and the way we guide our children, especially our boys who grow up with older females, we pet and protect them. They lack the ability to be, I'm not talking about being a testosterone kind of man. I'm talking about just to be self-assured and be strong men. We have to take on the mentoring of our boys so they can understand what masculinity is, right? I'm not talking about testosterone and holding up your testicles. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about strong men who are ready to take on the world, men who know I am a man and I can do this. All right? So we have to create that balance for all boys because they are very vulnerable. There are practices that boys are more likely to participate, and that's some of the risky behaviors. We talk about sex as a risky behavior. We're talking about substance abuse, right? Smoking weed. And I want to tell everybody in Grenada tonight that decriminalization of marijuana is not a license to smoke weed. It's not freeing up the weed. It is being able to use cannabis or marijuana in a way that can be of medicinal use, good, proper use to the population. Decriminalization of marijuana is not legitimizing ganja. Okay? We know that if people in general, but our boys are at greater risk, smoke weed before the age of 14, they're likely to develop challenges with their understanding and their thoughts and the ability to make decisions. Okay, their whole cognitive abilities are lessened. And you see them. They drop out of school. They can't follow in class because they're always too high to hear what the teacher is saying. But we also know that boys who smoke ganja and use other substances are at greater risk from manifesting severe mental illness like schizophrenia. Right? And schizophrenia is probably the most profound and least reversible, as far as I know, mental illness of all. The schizophrenic person is the person with schizophrenia is that person who would walk the street who can become very isolated from their family, who you see digging the dustbin, who you see can't communicate, who may become violent, because people with schizophrenia experience more violence towards them than they will do it, but they may become violent. If you smoke cannabis and you have the potential, the propensity to developing mental illness, you may, and so we need to make sure that our boys are not engaging in those activities that put them at risk for getting the mental illnesses. Our boys also will show the development of schizophrenia earlier than girls. So from, you see them 14, 16, they start to isolate themselves, they don't really hang out with anybody, they don't give trouble, they're inside a room and they just acting strangely. Often that's an onset of schizophrenia. So those are some of the things, if you have a family history especially, that we have to look for in our men, in our young boys. Have I seen changes in his behavior? And guess what? A change in a child's behavior may just mean that somebody's harassing him. Somebody's probably sexually abusing him and blackmailing him. And he can't tell anybody because they will say what it is. I've seen a myriad of young men who have been blackmailed by people who have sexual relationships with them, and they're afraid, and they go through life, and they get very depressed, and some of them actually end their lives. So that is why it's equally important to protect our boys and to make them aware of the challenges that are around them so that they can be healthy young men. Mm-hmm. All right? Mental health. So it's also important to recognize depression and to be able to intervene early. Depression is really real, right? And in the adolescent years, boys and girls have the same risk of developing depression. The girls will probably in other years supersede the guys. But boys also have the worst outcome for depression is suicide, where one takes one's life. A person takes their own life is what we call suicide. And boys have the highest risk of suicide in the adolescent population and in the population in general. Okay, so we have to make sure that we can recognize when our boys are having challenges. And sometimes we want to reprimand when what we need to do is practice some form of love until we can understand what it is that this child is experiencing, that he's not communicating. Why is he locked up in his room? Why he seems so morose, right? We have to be able to develop that kind of rapport with our children and to seek help for children who seem to be having depressive symptoms. Okay, so you have a 14-year-old boy or 15 or 13-year-old boy who play tennis, who play football, is a chess champion in school, is a straight A student, used to go to Sunday school, read in the church. Do you understand? Play the keyboard, whatever he does, and all of a sudden he likes to go to the movies, he likes to play on his computer, and all of a sudden here's you have a child who stops doing all of these things, loses interest, and starts isolating himself. Is he using substances? Is my child depressed? You have to get him there and get some help for him, and there is help here in Grenada. We are lucky to have a child adolescent psychiatrist here, right? Who knows this part of the profession inside out. Okay, so if you think your child is having challenges, your young child is having challenges, go find the adolescent psychiatrist, the child and adolescent psychiatrist. Trust me, we're so blessed we don't even know, right? So that is kind of looking at mental health. We kind of have to help our children to be in environments that are safe, but at the same time, help them to build resilience, right? And to develop coping skills. We have to teach them how to develop coping skills. But above all, we must have appropriate communication with our children so they don't feel like if you come and say something, right? If they come and tell you something, they don't feel that you won't quarrel them, but you're going to listen and try to help them. That is why we are here as adults, right? We all walk the road already. We need to sit down and listen to what our children say. As embarrassing as it is, right? We need to listen, right? Our children may have different sexual orientation, and that's a very important thing because it's out there in your face. And your child may be struggling with his sexual orientation and needs somebody to talk to and tell you, look, this is what I think I want for myself. This is what my brain is telling me is good. We kind of need to open our minds to each his own, right? The most we can do is to give people support so they can survive. right? And sometimes we tend to be judgmental or embarrassed, and it can feel a little embarrassing that, Lord, my son is gay or my daughter is gay. Guess what? That's their business. What they're asking is to support. You're not endorsing it enough. You're giving them moral support that they can survive. Because if in the household you have people who show you hate, imagine how you're going to live outside where there's no sanctuary, when there's no way to protect yourself. Okay? So that's very important.
Doc, let me ask a question quickly. A number of things you said there, very, very important. Are there in any way, or is there any correlation between some of these things and what is termed juvenile delinquency? Because that in itself is a problem among our young people.
Okay, so delinquency is really more than just that. It has to do with, it's a behavior, and you can have behavioral illnesses, and juvenile delinquency falls into that category. Adult children that behave bad are delinquent, okay?
No, yeah, I agree. But I was just I was just wondering whether if some of these issues
is something on its own, where you have children who really have adjustment problems, who see the world differently and behave differently, and may have underlying other stronger mental illnesses, so they don't conform. But it is related to not being in agreement with a lot of norms of the society. And those children really need special help. Because sometimes you can't change it, because they might have personality disorders that are not necessarily changeable, but you're going to have to work with them very hard for a long time. And they may not be able to understand or accept it, but you're going to have to work with them. So because those situations cause a lot of anxiety for them. They know they're doing wrong things, they just don't have no control over it. And so we have to help them to be able to adjust, to be able to have changed behaviors, right? And to provide a supportive environment in which they can modify their behaviors. Because you can't tell somebody, listen to me, you need to go in the library and read, and there's this and that, and there are no library. Do you understand? You must create the resources, and that's for everything. You have to ensure that we are resourceful enough so that our children can make the changes. The other thing is that if we look at the changes that have occurred, the societal changes that have occurred in the last 20 years, let's say 25. Look at technology. Look at AI, who's taking it all over. Why would I want to sit down and write a long essay when I could just tell AI, please write that? No, we got to teach our children how AI can assist you, but AI is not who is going to have to face the exam. You know, AI can give you suggestions as to how to write a paper, where to research and stuff, but AI must not write your paper. That is come out of your own intellectual capacity. All right? So the whole issue of delinquency is something that we have to look at, and we must not be quick to condemn our children. Right? But like I said, if we focus in on what our children's challenges are across the lifespan, we'll see when the changes start coming up, and we'll know when to seek out support and help.
Right. So one other thing I wanted to just run by you again, as we continue, it has to do, and I think it's probably most prevalent at that age, the age of adolescence, and that is the issue of risk-taking activities among our boys. They some of the risks that they take, other people wouldn't even entertain. Even older, as you get older, things that you probably did, you won't even consider it.
So it's a thing about boys, and the thing is that the testosterone that they take risks that girls don't take. It rains in Montego Bay one evening, and Montego had these two big drains, one on the north and one on the south side of the community, right? that takes all the water that comes from the hills down into the ocean. These little twin boys decide to jump in the North Gully, as it's called, that one is called, right? And one man goes in, take them out and put them on, go to all your house. Go home. They put on their clothes, and by the time it turns, they jump back in the water. Girls don't do that. Girls don't be watching to see how high the water is. So it's a daring thing that comes with the male gender. Mm-hmm. I mean, need to teach our boys how to adjust. I can tell you that the next morning, those two boys are fished out of the beach dead. Twins. Mm-hmm. Mother Lucy, only 2 children, because they take risks. And girls don't play extreme frisbee or do extreme mountain biking or drive fast and drag race. Girls really do that. And girls don't, well, I see our girls drinking as much, but there are risky behaviors, right? Because we boys think that those things are never going to meet up with them, right? We really have to provide a soft space, a safe space for people to be able to focus on the risk taking, right? They would play with guns and they would play with, do you know what I'm saying? And they would get involved in gangs. Because, adolescence feels invincible. That can happen. I'm not going to be dead. But also the presence of appropriate role models will help to attenuate that kind of situation. If people can say, no, you don't need to be smoking, right? You don't need to drink, when you go to a party, and you can teach them games to play and stuff to do and how else they can entertain themselves that doesn't include risky behavior for them. One of the things, and I think this is a good place to talk about, because I'm going to ask grandparents and parents to look at this now. You know the whole issue of vaping, right?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Do you understand the seriousness that vaping carries along with itself?
Well, it's something we've spoken about on numerous occasions on the program.
We've spoken on World No Tobacco Day, but that is risky behavior. Guess what? It's something that people allow their primary school children to do. Oh, it's just strawberry, they just taste it. No, it's hot air going into your lungs and killing your lungs. It tastes like strawberry, all right. It tastes like guava and have nice flavors, very exotic flavors. Pineapple, pina colada, whatever it is, right? The bottom line is that our children are at risk. And what's going to happen if the people who provide the vaping equipment, those are little apparatus that children use, right, are the same people who sell tobacco. They have almost monopolized the use of vapes, right? And guess what? Eventually, your child will vape tobacco and start smoking. That's his intention. Long rope and they wait because they know if they wait, this child is going to end up smoking tobacco and we'll make back our money. Well, they're already making it. So I'm going to ask parents to be very, very, very cautious and be very mean towards your children in a good way, right? Who are using these little instruments. Because the truth is, it makes your lung look like popcorn. And if you listen to the testimonials that come from the young people who have been using vapes, if you listen to their testimonials, you realize that I say, hello, run from that. Mm-hmm. Okay? Run from it, because the nicotine is going to come eventually. Do you know why we created those apparatus? It was created to help people to smoke, to decrease smoking. The nicotinic ones. So you instead of taking the nicotine and all the toxins, how much thousand toxin in a tobacco, right? In tobacco and in a cigarette in particular, you can use pure nicotine to get the same high, because that's what it is. Nicotine is very addictive. What happens is that you're supposed to be cutting it down until you really can't survive without it. It's really something to help you to ease the addiction. But people just do it as an easier way, they think, to take nicotine. They're not really using it and it's not very regulated. Because if it were regulated, our children won't be using all of these vapes in school. Mm-hmm. And it's time the Ministry of Health actually, and the government regulates vapors, because it is dangerous to our young people. So I want to ask parents to look around and see what is going on.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So we talked about how we're going to mitigate, how we're going to stop these kids from having challenges, our young men. We're going to have to make sure that we have reliable information. Information that doesn't make our children feel guilty. Information that's realistic and simple so they understand, that's informative, right? Certainly not creating that negative tone. You're smoking, so this is going to happen to you. Here is what smoking causes. Do you need someone to talk to about it? Okay? We have to make sure that our children, that there's affordable health care, because there's still diseases that are vaccine prevented that we have not taken, that some parents decided they're not going to take, and that older people adolescents who were children that were not given vaccines are still likely to develop the diseases. HPV, for example, which prevents cervical cancer, also prevents other cancers, like cancer of the penis, cancer of the anus, cancer of the throat, etc. Right? So, if we vaccinate our boys, we know that those are some of the things we eradicate from the potential barrel of illnesses that they can have. We must have access to affordable health, right? So that we can treat our boys for things that might be banal, but if not treated, can have problems in the long term. That we can take our children to boys to an adolescent clinic where they can get appropriate intervention, counseling, whatever it is, there must be that. And of course, mental health services for our adolescents must be a priority for us so that our children who have so many challenges. Have you been watching those Gaza reels? Have you?
Which one you said? The
ones from Gaza.
Oh boy. I try to avoid looking at what's happening there.
I want to remember this. So I look at them with a lot of trepidation, but I listened to a young boy today who spoke, he probably 12, 13, speaking like a man, and like an old man. He's been so politicized. He's been so abused. He's seen so much trauma, right? And he's speaking like an elder. Where's his childhood? We have to make sure that our children don't lose their childhood, not because we have war, but because there are other forms of trauma, right? And neglect and maltreatment that they experience. That is our responsibility as adults, that our children don't have those challenges, okay? And like I said, it must be accessible. We must set up a system where our boys, and because we're speaking about them tonight, can seek support if they have any challenges. Our delinquent boys was not just because our delinquent, I'm going to use that in inverted commas, boys, but not just because considered bad boys, but we need to look for the cause, right? Our boys end up in jail if we think they're delinquent and we don't intervene. Mm-hmm. And when they go to jail, we might discover, this guy has been having mental illness all along. Okay? So we have to ensure that our health system is structured in a way to capture the challenges and to create a safe space for all the problems that young men may have. And it must be done, problems must be done early. Interventions must be done early. Recognition must be done early. We must have an educated population who figures out that they're going to seek care for their boys, right? So that we can prevent long-term issues.
Doc, we have a caller on the line. Let's go to the telephone and see who is with us. Doctor and call, good evening.
Yeah, hello.
Yes, good evening, caller.
Well, yeah, I just agree with the doctor what he says, because from where he came from, you understand, it's because of friends. So I was on cooking for 25 years, and I come out and it's 15 years now. And people say, well, you can't have to find that boy. You have to have it a gun in your pocket, but it seems like I have it a gun in my pocket. And I come out and that's 15, and I will never go back there. This is not how good you want to go, and I urge nobody to go and do smoking, right, and marijuana, whether cooking, cigarettes, strong rum. I keep away from these things.
Thank you, caller. Thank you so very much for sharing that.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear it. It's really interrupting the.
Yeah. So the caller was saying that he's in total agreement with what you're saying, because he was involved with cocaine for 25 years. And he's been off this now for the last 15 years, and he's never going back there, and he's not encouraging anyone to get involved, neither with strong rum, cigarettes, marijuana, cocaine. Please don't.
But thank you, sir. And you see, those are the mentors we need in our society. People who have walked the path and could tell you where you go. Yep. It's funny because I don't know why I forgot to talk about the rum. Okay.
So, Doc, just before you go to it, let's just take this other call quickly. Doctor on call. Good evening.
Hello, good day.
Yes, good evening, caller.
Yeah, good afternoon. I've been listening to the doctor, and I am in somewhat having to be, sort of have a different opinion. I am not saying that the medication that has been manufactured to us today is not helping us. But, I am 67 years of age, and as a man growing up, we never heard of all these kind of medication then. But we have a system where our ancestors knew what. If we have a problem, there's something they call bully mass. I don't know if you ever know of that. Bully mass is something that thins the blood, right? Mm-hmm. And I remember if you get a knock or a hit, your grandmother will give you bully mass to drink. It's a stone, like a stone, and they give it to you. So I believe, honestly speaking, a lot of these things, the doctors today have to protect themselves. But a lot of the doctors are hypocrites, because they know a lot of these medication that is given to us, there are chemicals in it that will help you in one way and destroy you in another.
Can I just ask you one quick question, caller?
Yeah, go on.
You mentioned the bully mass earlier on, right?
Yeah.
Can you tell me what it's made of?
I don't know.
So then, hold on, caller. So then, you're telling me that bully mass was good. You do not know what it is made of, but then on the other hand, you are calling the doctors hypocrites because they're giving medication that you do not know what it's made of.
Okay, I'm sorry if I say it that way.
That's what you said.
Okay, hear what I'm saying. And I remember playing ball, fall down, hit myself, and my grandmother had a stone that she put in a thing with water, and she mixed it, and she said, drink it. And because the point is, you drink it, and whatever it was, I up to today, I'm 6 or 7 years of age, I never had the problem. I am saying to you, I believe to a certain extent in the medical fraternity, but a lot of the things that we are given to us have been manufactured.
But do you know the components of it? Do you know what they're made of?
I don't know, but you see, this is the point. This is the point. And if you're coming on that basis, there is a lot of things in Grenada right now, as a young man growing up, that we went through what we did. It has never been sort of propelled to the generation today. So when you ask them a certain question, they don't know nothing about it. I am not controversial in that way. I'm not saying medication today do not help, but there's a lot of chemicals that is being put in medication that will solve one problem and create an next.
Okay, caller. Thank you very much. Mm-hmm.
And the doctor needs to...
Thank you, caller. Thank you. Yeah. All right.
I haven't heard. I'm sorry. Don't laugh at the man. What?
Well, no. I'm not laughing at him.
You're breaking up, actually.
Yeah, no. I'm not laughing at him. It's just that. So, for example, he made a reference to Bullimas, which old people, it's his grandparents, and so gave him to drink.
To what? To what? I didn't hear. To what object?
Something called Bullimas. I've heard of it. So, for example, if you fell and you got a knock, it is believed that it would help, or it would prevent blood clot in different parts of your body. So it would help you. All right. But when I asked him if he knew what it was made of, and he said no. He also doesn't know what the medication that we take today, what they're made of. But he felt that doctors are hypocrites and they should tell people that. So I don't know how you.
It's interesting because can you hear me?
Yeah, I'm hearing you. Mm-hmm.
I heard doctors are hypocrites. I hate to inform you that I don't feel that most of us the doctors are hypocrites, and I take that you need to put a little more salt on that when he's saying it, and that's really insulting to me as a physician and to my colleagues. But hear me. I heard him mention also about chemicals in this stuff, but everything has chemicals. You know the thing that we call periwinkle?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Do you know what some people use it for?
I'm not sure.
So periwinkle was discovered in the Caribbean here. That's if it would bring down your blood sugar. Right? It will take it. So if you're diabetic and you get a periwinkle tea, your sugar will come down, right? And so at the University Research Center, then TMRC, right? They started with a cohort of people giving them periwinkle tea. But periwinkle was killing the liver. Mm-hmm. Mash up the liver. They had to discontinue the research. So, what I understand on one hand the frustration because of lack of knowledge that people have in relation to medications, and how they feel that it affects other people. But they have to remember that before a medication is passed, right, for use, you know what the FDA is? The Food and Drug Administration is an organization that was set up to investigate. It's like the Bureau of Standards, but it's much more. Its duty is much more ample.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Every single thing, including bottled water, that you are going to sell or distribute in the community among people has to pass through the FDA. I talk about bottled water. If you go to the river and you fill a bottle of water and you decide I want to sell pure St. John's River water, it has to go to the FDA, and they will test it. Yeah.
But you see, Doc, that's why some items are sometimes pulled from shelves, because with testing, so you realize that there is an issue, and so they recalled. I mean, almost every day I get email notifications. For example, there's a site called All Recipes, and so where they do all sorts of different things and different sites, and you see those mails coming with different items that are recalled, over certain periods. And for whatever reasons, certain batches and all of that. So
our gentleman who just called, and while I understand his concern, I hope his campaign, if he has one, is not to tell our young men, of whom we speak tonight, that they shouldn't take medication that's given to them when they need it. I hope that he will tell the young men to ensure that they inquire from the doctor, what is this? Why do I have to take it? How is it going to affect me? What are the potential side effects? Do I really have to take this? And that's when they're given a course of medication, they take the complete course, especially with these antibiotics, so that they don't develop antibiotic resistance and all of the complications. So that's all I want to tell him tonight, and thank you, sir, for calling.
Yeah. Yes, indeed. You would always find that, but that's the situation. Doc, one last thing I wanted to sort of underscore before we wrap, and it was mentioned earlier, and it is the issue of education, and not just health education, but education on a broad scale, because I think it is very, very critical and very important. And generally, when people do have, or when people are educated, in a broad sense, it places them in a better situation, or it places them in a situation to better analyze things and understand things. And I think it is something
because they can read labels.
Right. So I think it is something that we need to...
They can discuss and exchange ideas.
Exactly.
Right?
And
they will also seek information, which is so they don't have to take gossip.
Additional
they can go and investigate what it is about.
Yeah. So, you don't just hear someone say something and you run with it. And I think it is something I want to encourage. And I've always said, that on the internet, there are lots and lots of educational opportunities which are free. And I want to encourage our young people, and not just young people, but everyone, take advantage of these opportunities, and develop yourselves.
Yeah.
It would place
Don't wait for anybody.
Exactly. There are loads of opportunities. There are loads of courses that you can take. Some of them 3 weeks, 6 weeks. You can go through them. They're all available. They're there. So rather than just using the internet to mind people business and see it's funny the things that we show interest, and I guess it's because of whatever, but you would look, for example, at the news, or for example, if you look at the GBN's Facebook page, and from time to time, every evening, different clips of news are posted on our Facebook site, and you would look at some of the Facebook, the viewership, and some of the important stories, things that can impact your lives in a positive way. When you look at the views of these things and you compare it with some others, it is amazing. People are clearly not interested in issues of...
In advancement and elevation.
Exactly. A case in point. I was just browsing through some of the posts on our page, and there was this rather unfortunate accident, Doc, that took place somewhere in Montjelo, where two people lost their lives, and you'd be amazed at the viewership of that. And some of the comments...
Not just the viewership, the comments.
Some of the comments that were made. I mean, it is just appalling. And compare that...
And two people are dead.
2 people are dead. Compare that with a story... that probably brings some if you want to call it some hope, or it makes us as a people look good. It makes Grenada look good. You look at the viewership, nobody's interested. No,
like gossip.
Exactly. And I want to say this evening. I want to encourage people to use the internet to develop yourself. You will be happy you did. I can guarantee you that. You will be happy. And it wouldn't take very long before you realize how self-development can boost your self-confidence and everything else. So please take advantage. Educate yourselves. I am not telling you if you're in a position to go there and try to get a master's degree. I'm not saying that. If you can, of course, by all means. But there are a lot of educational opportunities that can put you in a better place. There are certificate courses, there are diploma courses that you can go read, talk to people, and you will be in a better place. So I just wanted to put that out there, Doc, because I think it's so important, and to our young men, it can definitely help you especially in dealing with issues of conflict where you can get hurt, where you can, it will help you to exercise better judgment. It is important. So give it a shot. Give it a shot. I challenge you to do that. Doc, I know we almost out of time. It's 3 minutes to 10.
There's one thing I want to raise quickly because it's going to come back again.
Yes.
So this is silly season has begun. Yep. So most of the prime ministers had to make pronouncements about jab. I'm not going to comment on that. People do what I'm just going to advise people to do what is correct. Okay? But I want us to remember the challenges of alcohol and our children in this time. Mm-hmm. Alcohol is a very addictive substance. Once you start it, you want more of it. And there's lots more of it where that first drink came from. Remember that alcoholism kind of runs in families. So if you have somebody in your family who already has an alcohol problem, we have to make sure we protect our children, especially our boy children, who tend to have more access. And even if they tell us, the laws say that we cannot give alcohol to anybody under 18, everybody drink eggnog at Christmas and Christmas cake, right? And sorrel and all of that has alcohol. I want people to start considering those things as gateways towards you having alcohol, which is an addictive substance and which has severe effect on your brain, your liver, your heart in particular, okay? And can be deadly, can also cause obesity, and can cause cancer, and can kill you, right? So, and not only does that, alcohol has other component that as you grow older and you have families, it becomes one of the things that most destroys family lives. So I want us to start talking to our boys as to why they shouldn't drink. So do you know that the studies are showing that if you have one drink a day, your risk for cancer increases. Mm-hmm. Any amount of alcohol that you consume increases your risk for cancer. We don't have a problem with our boys drinking alcohol, but we forget that they are at greater risk for developing all of these diseases. So as we go into this silly season, I see everybody with a bottle of beer and a glass in their hand on especially Sunday jab. I don't know if they close down church, but everybody on there playing jab. The bottom line is that you have to protect yourself, and we need to do what is right. We need to do what is right for our country. We need to come up. And I see mostly men out there. Not that I don't see women, but they're men. We need to train our boys that this is not necessarily favorable behavior, that we're out there on a Sunday morning drinking alcohol and playing jab. Nobody loves jab more than me, but I think for everything there's a season and a time. Okay? We're going to talk about more about alcohol and the challenges we'll have as the silly season come. I know the boat ride starts and all the rest. Please, people, please be responsible. Yes. I don't know that there's any responsible drinking, like drink responsibly. I would tell people don't drink, but for some reason, people think they can have a drink. Have a drink, don't have 2 and 3 and 10 that you don't know what's going on in your life. Our men in particular, please don't drink and drive because you have a greater risk of dying on the road. I don't know why this gentleman died, why he got into the accident, I don't know what it was, but we have a male driver who's not only killed himself, but has also killed a passenger, right? Men take greater risk. Okay?
Indeed.
So, in conclusion, we concluding?
Yes, just about that time.
Right. In conclusion, our men are important, our boys are important, the male of our species is important. You know what the thing is though, why we're having the challenges? Because there's so much effect, there's so much effort, right, on female health, right? Reproductive health, think about female. Most of the things we think about female, and we forget the other just as important component of our human race, our males, especially instilling in them healthy behaviors, healthy lifestyle, healthy outlook, whatever it is, from childhood into adolescence and young adulthood. The truth is, the habits that we learn young are going to be habits that we take into life. Are we going to mentor our boys to make sure and be exemplary as men and even as women to our boys to ensure that they lead the healthiest lifestyle possible? What are we going to do? How are we going to mitigate our men losing their eyes and their feet and etc. by diabetes? How are we going to mitigate our men committing suicide? How are we going to mitigate our men dying in accidents and doing risky things like speeding and drag racing and doing all the crap that they did? All right. How are we going to mitigate that our men die by adventure? How are we going to mitigate that our men end up populating our mental institutions much more than our female, especially with acute psychotic experiences where they have tried all different kind of substances? How are we going to mitigate that? Who graduates from universities? 75% of university graduates are females, and probably more by now.
Yep, definitely.
How are we going to change that? We don't think our boys are more dunce, or they dunce. We just think that our boys need to be supported from very young, that they need to be mentored, that they must be offered optimal health care, that it must be affordable, it must be accessible to them, right? And they must be able to understand all that's going on in their life and how their choices, their behaviors can, at the end of the day, influence what their adult lives are like, and how long they would live, and what quality of life they would enjoy.
Definitely.
And that the opportunities are equally present for them, for education and all the rest. We're going to have to start mentoring and motivating our boys, and families where there are boys, and supporting families where you have single mothers who really need some support to guide their boys, especially in relation to sexuality and all the rest of it. So no man is an island, and it's going to take a village to raise all of our boys in a very healthy way. Have a good night, everyone. Yes. And please boil your water because rain is coming and there's still cold going around, right? And please make sure we drive safely. There are a lot of cars on the road and a lot of people who don't know how to drive out there.
Yes, indeed. Doc, thank you so very much. I just want to just remind our men, just to add to what Doc is saying. I guess, many of our young men, we're at a stage where we probably don't think ahead. We just think about now. But for a moment, just stop and think. How would I like my life to be as I start aging? That is, if we get to that based on the behavior. What do I want to be?
Wherever you are, you're aging.
Do I want to, as I get older, be living in poverty? Do I want to be in a place where I have to be depending on people to give me handouts? I don't think so. Now, that can change if we take stock of what is happening now. Yeah, the choices that we make now, and of course the judgments that we exercise. So we need to pay attention and think about that now, so that later on we won't be in a situation where when we look back at how we were, we have more regrets than enjoyments. Thank you very much, folks. Reminding you, hey, this Saturday, King of the Grill at the Monrouge Plainfield. We're looking forward to seeing all of Grenada there. Thank you very much. Tomorrow evening, Kaiso Talk. We're talking with the former monarch, Sour Serpent, Big J, and all the guys from St. David. They'll be in the program with us to chat Kaiso. They've got their big lunch coming up on Saturday as well. So we're looking forward to chatting with you tomorrow evening at 8:30. Do have a good night. All the best.
Diabetes, AIDS, cancer,